Welcome to OnTrax Timesheets, a flexible, cloud-based business solution designed from the ground up to solve problems of today's businesses, both large and small. In today's video, we are going to demonstrate how OnTrax can reduce the risk of billing and payroll errors while saving you time and money. We will start by configuring the QuickBooks Web Connector settings within OnTrax. Next, we will import base configuration data from QuickBooks and use that to configure employees and projects within OnTrax. Once that is complete, we will demonstrate how to generate invoice and payroll data. And to wrap things up, we will transmit the invoice and payroll data back to QuickBooks. First, a quick note about the data transmission process. OnTrax utilizes the QuickBooks Web Connector in order to communicate between the two systems. This method is completely secure and utilizes secure socket layer encryption. This utility was developed by Intuit for the sole purpose of allowing external vendors to interface with their accounting data in a controlled and secure fashion. Please refer to the documentation provided by Intuit should you have any questions about the Web Connect utility. Let's get started. Once logged into your new OnTrax company, navigate to the top-level configuration menu item. Now, navigate to the integration menu item and select QuickBooks Web Connector settings from the drop list. This screen acts as a control panel within OnTrax that allows your company to specify certain actions that will be performed when the Web Connect utility is run. In this case, you can see that each option is selected. Let's take a look at the columns. The Setting Type column lists data elements that can be transmitted between the two systems. The second column indicates if the item should be imported from QuickBooks. The third column indicates that a mapping record should automatically be created for the item being imported. The mapping record is needed when transmitting data back to QuickBooks, and it's recommended that this column is checked. The fourth column only applies to transmission of invoice and payroll data to QuickBooks. If these items are checked, then any invoice and payroll data awaiting transmission will be sent to QuickBooks the next time the Web Connector utility is run. In summary, the settings as they appear on this screen right now are instructing the Web Connector to send all employees, customers, and service items from QuickBooks to OnTrax. If these data elements do not exist in OnTrax, then they will be created along with the appropriate mapping records. Once those steps are completed, the connector will check to see if there are any invoice or payroll data that should be sent back to QuickBooks. We will talk about that in more detail in a moment, but first, let's run the Web Connector and import our users, customers, and service items. Okay, so as we can see, we are in a new company within OnTrax. Only one user exists and there are currently no projects or project items. Now let's look at our QuickBooks company. As we can see here, we have a few employees, customers, and service items that we can import to OnTrax. So let's get started and open the utility. Note that the QuickBooks Web Connect and QuickBooks both have to be installed on your current desktop, and both applications need to be open. Now the easy part. Let's synchronize the QuickBooks data to OnTrax. Now let's take a look at OnTrax. As we can see, the data has been imported. The QuickBooks service items have been entered into the project item portion of the application, and customers have been imported as well. Additionally, employees have been entered into OnTrax, but note that they've been created with an inactive status. This will ensure that you will not exceed your user count, and will also give you time to review the employee configuration before they're active in the system. It is recommended that each of the employee tabs are reviewed and configured before letting users enter the system. We will look at the Rate tab in particular. Since rates are calculated with each time posting, it's recommended that the internal and external rates or salary amounts are configured at this time. These rates are used as the default rate when this user enters time postings. The external rate will be used when creating billable entries and invoices in the customer billing portion of the application. Another setting of note on this tab is the Export to Payroll authorization. If this user is going to have their hours exported from OnTrax to QuickBooks, then this authorization needs to be set to yes and saved. Please note, internal and external rates used in postings can be overridden at a number of levels if required. This topic is beyond the scope of this video, but if you'd like further information about rate determinations, please search for the Rate Determination Diagram in the System Help. Now that we have our data elements downloaded from QuickBooks, we can create a new project and assign the users, project items, and a customer, and we'll be ready to start entering time postings. Okay, so here we have a new project. I've assigned the users and service items imported from QuickBooks. I have also assigned a QuickBooks customer. This is important because it identifies postings to this project as being related to this QuickBooks customer when we send data back to QuickBooks. I've also made sure that both my users and projects are set to active. Now we're all set for employees to post entries to this project and activities, or as QuickBooks calls them, service items. So now I have logged in and posted time to our new project under the user of Eric Peters. His time postings have been set to pending and have been approved by his approving manager. Since these postings have been approved, they will be eligible for export to QuickBooks for both payroll hours and customer billing. These functions are performed through the integration menu option, and here we'll take a look at payroll exports. Within the payroll export screen, you'll notice 3 buttons with green icons that indicate mappings are complete. These mappings, you will remember, were created when we imported our employees and service items, as well as when we assigned a customer to our project. Here we will take a quick look at the mappings by selecting one of the buttons. The mapping grid displays the relationship between the OnTrax element and the QuickBooks element. So in this case, the OnTrax project is mapped to the QuickBooks customer. We can also see the same information for the OnTrax project item and the QuickBooks service item, as well as the user's mappings. In order to create the payroll export, I will first enter a job ID. Next, I will select the date range to pull the time entries from. In this case, I'm going to perform a full export. A delta export can also be performed. Once initialized, the delta export will only export new entries to OnTrax since the initialization date of the delta. We can also exclude billable and non-billable posting types, or override posting billable types in the export by selecting the appropriate checkboxes below. Now that we're all set, we can select the Create Payroll Export button. This button will compile all the postings and display them in the processing screen for review. At this time, all entries should be reviewed for accuracy. If we see postings that are inaccurate, then we should go back and fix those postings and rerun the process. Once we are satisfied with the preview data, we can adjust the job status dropdown. We can either leave it as processed, or we can set it to send to QuickBooks. Once a job has been processed and the status is set to send to QuickBooks, then it will be synchronized to QuickBooks the next time the Web Connect utility is run. Let's go ahead and process the payroll file. Once complete, the screen will redirect you back to the configuration screen, and the new job will be listed in the lower grid. As you can see, this job has been saved and the status is set to send to QuickBooks. If we want to see the detail of this job again, we can do so by selecting the binoculars at the end of the row. This will return us to the processing screen. However, you'll notice that the Process Entry button is no longer enabled, and the new View Transaction Log button is visible. Right now, this log is empty as we have not sent any data back to QuickBooks yet. So let's do that. First, I will make sure my OnTrax Web Connect settings are set properly. To do so, I'll go to the Configuration, Integration, Web Connect menu option. Next, I will check that the Transmit Payroll selection and be sure that the Send to QuickBooks option is checked. Now let's go back to QuickBooks. As you can see, we are in the Employee Time Entry screen, and we are looking at Eric Peters for the week of October 6th, the same week we ran the export job for. At this time, this user has no time entries. When the connector runs, it checks our OnTrax settings in order to see what actions it should perform. The connector will process each step in order. For example, if our OnTrax settings indicate to import employees, customers, or service items, then the connector will pull a list of those items and insert any new ones into OnTrax. So in our case, the Web Connector will process those steps and insert our employee hours into Eric Peters' time card. So let's run the Web Connector now. First, I'll start by entering my password, if it's not already saved. Next, I will press the Update Selected button, and that's it. Now I'll just wait for Eric Peters' time postings to be imported to QuickBooks. Wow, now that was quick. Okay, so when we take a look at Eric Peters' time card, we can see that QuickBooks now has 3 line items, one for each service item that was imported from OnTrax. We can also see that each day throughout the week is populated with hours for the individual activities, or service items. And overall, we can see that 40 hours have been entered for the week. Now we can use this information within QuickBooks as we see fit. Okay, just as a recap. In this video, we showed how to load users, service items, and customers from QuickBooks to OnTrax with the Web Connector. We then showed basic information about the user configuration, creation of projects, as well as the assignment of service items, users, and customers to the project. Next, we showed employee time postings for the project and service items. And lastly, we showed how to send employee hours back to QuickBooks with the Web Connector. One piece that we did not get to cover is the creation of customer invoices and the transmission back to QuickBooks. Since we're running a little long on this video, we'll cover that in a separate video in the future. Thanks, have a great day, and we hope you enjoyed this video. Visit us now at www.ontraxtimesheets.com and sign up for a free trial or schedule a free interactive demonstration.